What if an epidemic or a new pandemic occurred and people said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We would say, you're going to use this drug that we made ahead of time.
Roughly 6,000 people work at Vanderbilt. Any one of them can change the world. I'm Jad Abumrad, new professor here at Vandy, and today I'm meeting a guy who led one of the most important medical sprints in history. Dr. James Crowe is an immunologist.
Take two.
He hunts for antibodies.
What is an antibody?
So can I grab a couple of them?
Yeah, please.
Oh, and he collects art. A lot of art. In fact, in his office, the art and the science are kind of all mixed together.
This particular piece
I can grab that for you.
is actually a palm leaf, but what this artist envisioned is so similar to the antibody. And you have to be able to visualize in 3 dimensions and dynamics these structures, which we don't have good pictures for, to think about how this stuff works.
Okay, so what happens when a virus enters your system is that your white blood cells start spitting out billions of these molecules called antibodies, which are like little molecular Legos of different shapes and sizes. And the hope is that one of them will be just the right shape to lock onto the virus and smother it.
In our group, we make drugs out of antibodies. So if you said, I want an antibody to flu, my team might go off for 3 or 4 years and find one. And yet, when epidemics occur, 3 or 4 years is too long.
2018, Dr. Crowe gets a call from the Department of Defense. They tell him, we've been seeing all of these new pandemics. If we give you a vial of blood from someone who's been infected but then survived, can you find a cure in 90 days?
We kind of laughed, like that's ridiculous, because the typical time for a vaccine, honestly, is decades. We hate to say that out loud, but we took on the challenge. And so we simulated a Zika outbreak. DARPA has a stopwatch, pull it out, and they say, today's day 0, click, go. It was almost like a war game scenario. And within each little portion of blood that's about that big, there's at least 1 million of these white blood cells. If we have a tube of blood, now we have 10 million.
And they knew that one of those 10 million cells could make an antibody that could neutralize the virus. But which one? To search one at a time would take years. So Dr. Crowe and his team came up with entirely new techniques on the fly, new machines.
A lot of things failed. Machines broke and stuff happens, but we kept overcoming each obstacle.
He said his team worked in shifts, sleeping under their desks.
And they stopped the clock and we were at 78 days.
They beat their goal, only 78 days.
That changed my mind about what was possible. And so we were planning a second sprint, but January 2020,
January 21st, 2020.
First confirmed case in the United States of
Panic is rising, total shutdown.
and so on the fly, we switched and we said, we're going to find an antibody for this new coronavirus and we're going to do it in 60 days. We wanted to study the first case, and there literally was a tube of blood in Seattle from patient 1.
Whoa.
But it was Saturday, and there's no express services that deliver on Sunday morning. So I had an idea.
He thought, Vanderbilt is in Tennessee, so is FedEx.
These CEO people, they probably know each other, Don't they do CEO things?
A day later, the vial of blood was on a flight to Memphis and then in a car to Nashville.
I was telling the team, it's coming, it's 3 minutes away.
This is some Indiana Jones shit right here.
I mean, it was very, very intense.
They worked around the clock to create a synthetic version of the virus, test it against all the white blood cells in their sample, and eventually they found the one white blood cell that could make an antibody that could lock onto the virus.
And we ended up 25 days from the time we got a blood sample from an immune individual. We turned over the recipe to make that drug to a pharma partner. And so
25 days?
25 days.
Wow.
The antibodies that his team found in those 25 days are now part of a drug therapy that just the last year has been injected into the arms of over 3 million immunocompromised people. But he didn't stop there.
We've said, what would be faster than 25 days would be to do this ahead of time.
Instead of 25, how about 0?
So we made a list of the 100 most likely causes of future epidemics, and we're currently making antibodies for all of those unusual biothreats. There's this limitation sometimes in scientific thinking where people will say, you can't do that, or your body can't do that, or that's never been seen. And it's only artistic thinking that invades science and disrupts the models that allows people to envision things that they couldn't see.
As we were talking, and he was going back and forth between antibodies and art, antibodies, it occurred to me, there really is no difference. These things he's chasing, it's all just shapes. If you look at it a certain way, the endless manipulation of forms.
The people that really change the world or change the world through science and technology are not thinking about science and technology. They're thinking about ideas, and they're thinking about how does the world work. They're not trying to make something or do something. They're just being curious.